exercises that I think will be helpful for you for helping people with getting their abdominals to work. Okay, so I went ahead and did some fancy artwork so you could see IOs and EOs for the last exercise we're gonna do. So let's go ahead and dive into the first one. Now this is gonna be simply a firing exercise where you're learning how to contract, which I think is really important. So we already know how to check our diastasis, but one of the things that I see people focus on is the midline, when you really should be focusing further out on the TAs. So what I've almost always noticed is that if there is a kind of, I don't want to say a hole because that's a bad word, but a point of squishiness in the midline, when somebody picks up their head and they're like, oh, I've got this point of squishiness, I can almost always go out here and find a reference point of squishiness in their TAs. So what I like to do is have them inhale. Remember, we worked on that really good inhale, 360. Exhale, gentle pelvic floor lift, gentle front pelvic floor lift. And then lift their head. And I want them to focus, it's almost like a little bit of a small crunch. Their low back can find the floor. And then focus on the outside and see if they can generate some tension. And what they might have to do is increase the intensity of their exhale or increase the intensity which they're contracting their abs. And then usually with a little bit of work with that, they can find their TAs on the outside. Okay, they'll also find external internal obliques, because if you're having to bring something that hard, you're gonna find everything, okay? Because the TAs are the first ones to kick in, and they're a little bit more subtle, okay? So we'll get into that later. All right, but you know what? Sometimes you gotta find everything so that you can get something on board, which is totally fine. All right, so exhale, lift, focus on feeling the outside. Do you have some tension here? If not, try to deepen it a little more. Because our TAs automatically fire with forced expiration. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Our TAs, transverse abdominals, automatically fire with hard forced expiration. So if you can get somebody to exhale harder, oftentimes you can get this muscle to kick in. Okay, so that is my first thing I really like to focus on, is a little bit of pelvic floor lift, finding those TAs on the outside. Can you get those TAs to fire? Do they want to show up? So it's not always a focus on the midline, what's going on out here. And usually if you can combine it with a pelvic floor lift and with more of a forced exhale, then you're going to get a little bit better result. Now let's dive into something a little bit harder. And I want you to try, if you've got a diastasis at home, I want you to try to do a small crunch. But what I want you to focus on is what's going on in your rib cage. Okay, so you can see how I drew in external obliques, okay? So what I want you to focus on for your small crunch is taking your rib cage and bringing it in and down. So you're thinking about ribs together. Tiny crunch, back down. Head does not lead the way, okay? So great inhale. Nice expansion. Feel your back touch the floor on that inhale, so you get great expansion. Exhale. Lift your pelvic floor a little bit on the exhale, as long as you don't have pelvic floor tightness. We just want to make sure you don't bear down when you create pressure here. And then ribs come in and down. As the ribs start to come in and down, I want them to lead the way. Then you pick up your head. So we're trying to get ribs in, decrease this infrasternal angle. So our infrasternal angle is the angle that our rib cage makes, and that is telling about your internal and external oblique balance. Right, so if you have a really wide rib cage, that's telling me that you are internal oblique dominant. You're really getting a lot of pulling apart. Your poor diastasis, that poor midline, it needs a little more support than that. So let's bring those ribs in, okay? So inhale, expand everywhere. Exhale, ribs in and down. Lift your head just a little bit. So you're getting a small crunch. Lower abs are flattening. Ribs are coming in and down. You should feel tension in the sides. Are you generating some tension here? You should feel tension where the fascia connects to the rectus. You should feel tension where those TAs come through. Fascia connection all the way through, and connection in the middle. So see if that doesn't provide a little bit more stimulation, because that's the trick, right? With working on healing any sort of fascia issue, is we've got to bring enough stimulation to the system to say, hey, you need to change. If we're always so careful and we don't provide any of that stimulus, it's not going to remodel. What's the right? It doesn't have a reason. And on the other side of that, so same thing for the pelvic floor, we got to give it enough challenge. But on the other side of that, if we give it too much, then we're going to end up with deforming the fascia more, and we're going to end up with more of an issue. Same thing with the pelvic floor. Okay, so you need just the perfect right amount of stimulus and challenge, which is why sometimes I'll actually have people go ahead and do planks and see how they load their midline. Do they get doming? Do they get bulging? What does it look like? And sometimes they actually look better than they do if I just have them lift their head. So sometimes they will have, like a 2 or 3 finger gap with a lot of squishiness, but I flip them over into a plank and feeling like, oh wow, that actually feels a lot better. You need more challenge. So don't be afraid to check yourself in more challenging positions and check your clients in more challenging positions, because you might find that adding more challenge actually helps the system. Okay, now let's go ahead and move into the most advanced exercise of the ones that we're going to go over for getting these abs on board and getting everything to work together. So grab a band, hook it up somewhere. We're going to do some rotations. Now these are going to be completely different from the rotations that you did in the pelvic floor section. All right, so what we're thinking about here is I've got the band hooked up on my left side, and I'm going to be rotating to my right. So this is what I drew pictures on. So as I rotate to the right, I'm going to be getting a concentric contraction of my external obliques, concentric contraction of my internal obliques over here. So left is going to be external concentric, right is going to be internal concentric as we rotate across. Now there's a couple things I want you to look for here. Lower abdominal bulging. All right, so when somebody adds a band, do they bulge in their lower abs? Now, what we're going for here is no lumbar rotation. Okay, so this area stays still. What we are rotating through is our thoracic spine, and this is why I love this rotation for diastasis. Okay, so I want you to think about this. When there's this, everything has, there's rules. Everybody's like, oh, the generalizations where don't rotate if you have diastasis. I'm like, well, wait a minute, but mid-back stiffness is going to actually contribute to making a diastasis not heal. We need thoracic rotation. And so what I want you to focus on for this is not rotating your lumbar spine, but really tapping into thoracic rotation. So you're going to focus on rotating right at the bottom of your rib cage, stable where your belly button is. Okay, so we're not getting a ton of rotation. We're not rotating from here. Do you see the difference? So this is rotating everywhere. Lumbar, thoracic. Hold here through your lumbar and rotate through your thoracic. So I want you to start with me. Come into this half kneeling position. Take your hands, feel your rib cage. Exhale, gentle pelvic floor lift if you don't have tightness. And then rotate. See if you can rotate just a little bit. And I want you to think about fighting that rotation, because do you know who fights the rotation or the pulling of the external obliques? Do you know? The transverse abdominals. So the transverse abdominals and multifidi help to come in and stabilize against that big pull of those obliques. All right, so they help to hold us nice and stable, and the obliques pull and move us. Okay, so we need the multifidi, we need the TAs for stability. So what I want you to do is think about, as you rotate, you're kind of fighting that rotation. Like you almost want to hold still, but you're fighting it. And if you try that, you're going to actually generate a lot of tension through your core. All right, so give it a shot for me really quick. Just see if you can kind of fight that rotation where you're not letting any of the rotation happen through your lumbar spine. You're using your TAs to hold that nice and stable, kicking in lots of multifidi to fight those obliques so they're not pulling our vertebrae all over the place. And then I want you to rotate through your rib cage, okay? So as we rotate to the right, we're gonna be getting left external obliques, right internal obliques, and we're gonna be getting lots of TAs because we're gonna be fighting that rotation. So if you just like loosey-goosey, all right, oh yeah, I'm just gonna rotate, everything is moving, then you're gonna be, sure, you're not gonna really get TAs when you do that. You're probably also gonna get a lot of your back kicking in as well. Like the QL is just gonna be like, I can do it, hips probably gonna hang. So that's why I want you to really focus on that stabilization. Okay, so if we go ahead and add a band to that, I want you to think about holding a lot with your outside arm, and this is where we're gonna be pulling in that entire kinetic chain. So we're gonna be getting posterior delt, we're gonna be getting lower traps, we're gonna be getting lower traps that come in and insert into our thoracolumbar fascia. Remember, you've already heard that before. That's what the TAs insert into. So as we start kicking all this stuff in together, it's really pretty freaking awesome. Okay, So hold here, come really tall. I want you to tuck your bottom just a pinch. Okay, just be really careful. We don't want to overly stretch the hip flexor here. So if you feel a lot of pulling in the front, then that means your hip flexor is probably pretty tight. We need to take a few steps back, and you probably need to go ahead and join me in the PCES course, because there's a lot of stuff we need to dive into and we need to work through for getting your body feeling great. Okay, and the people you help. But I find, you know what, if you feel great, it's easier to help others because you've already figured all this stuff out on yourself. Okay, so here, tall, little bit of a lift through your head, trying to grow. Now, are your hips level, or are you hiking to do it? Check yourself. Look in the mirror right now. Open a camera, videotape yourself. Drop that hip down. I want level hips here. If you hike your hip for this, you're going to use your QL, okay? We're not here to work our QLs. Our QLs get plenty of work with other things. So drop that hip, do not hike it, okay? So if you need to, this can be really a helpful cue. Engage your front hamstring. So if you're having trouble with hiking and you're getting a lot of that QL, drop that by engaging your front hamstring. So engage that front hamstring. It's going to help pull that hip down and under. That front hamstring is also going to help stabilize you, okay? So get that front hamstring. Exhale, fight that rotation. Fight it on the way back. And you should feel like a nice burning on both sides. Now, with my back pain clients that I see, with my diastasis clients that I see, I almost always see only one side working. I'm like, okay, where do you feel that? And they're like, oh, just this side or just this side. And I'm like, aha, well, there we go. We need to get both sides to kick in. So one of the things that we learned in school for stroke rehab is if you want to get something on board, you can tap it. Or my teacher used to say you can slap it, but you might not want to do that to your clients. But what you can do is have them tap an area to give it a little bit more stimulation. So if they're all external obliques and there's no internal, or they're all internal and no external, then you might want to just tap an area to get it to kick in, and it sends signals, all right? It's all about building those pathways, making this easy. All right, so rotate. Nice, good inhale. Exhale. You can do one long exhale there and back, since we're kind of fighting this motion a little bit with those TAs. And give me a nice big inhale here. Or you can exhale and inhale on the way back, because, you know, being able to breathe both ways under a load is also a beautiful thing. What we're looking for is no doming in the middle. So you shouldn't have distortion or doming. If you're getting distortion or doming, that's telling me you might have some psoas tightness, some pressure issues. Your back might be really tight, probably not able to drop that hip. Positioning might be hard, so what I would focus on here is just simply holding and just pressing out. Okay, so just start simple. Don't start with rotation, just start with a simple press. See how that feels, see if you can build from there. See if you can even focus on just holding the position and doing little twists. Okay, so if you can get that on board, we can get both sides working. We can get the TAs also working to fight to stabilize the lumbar spine. Then we're gonna get everything on board, and it's gonna feel awesome. And I've used this exercise to really help with my clients that have diastasis that need to just like finally get well. So it's really great for that tap in once you've established all the other good patterns. All right. So give that a shot, see what you think. Make sure you do both sides, all right? Switch around, do the other side, so that you're getting internal and external, both eccentrically and concentrically on both sides. All right, so that's a good thing too. So switch around, do the other side. All right, so let me know what you think about this course, about these exercises. Let me know what questions you have. And if you took something away, if you enjoyed our time together and would like to earn some CEU credits and join me in the full course, I would love to have you. I love teaching. It's just such a passion. It's so fun to take things and break them down and break them into concepts where we can understand and then apply them. So it's really fun. So thank you for spending your time with me throughout this course. And I'd love to spend more time with you if you would like to join us in the PCES program. There's both a pregnancy section and a postpartum section, so that we can dive into helping. But in reality, this is movement of the human body. So you can apply this to men, you can apply it to women going into menopause, older women. You can apply it to basically any population that's gonna help. So there are some specific postpartum timelines. There's a lot of very specific pregnancy advice where we look on helping to prevent a severe diastasis during pregnancy, which is Super cool. I have one instructor that went through that I just talked to last week, where she was talking about not a single one of her clients over the whole year, not a single one had a severe diastasis after she took the course. So she had this whole big group that went through pregnancy before taking it. Almost all of them had a severe diastasis because they were doing really heavy loading. And then after taking the course, I touched base with her after an entire year, and not a single one, which is so cool. So I don't have the official studies to back it up, but I sure have the anecdotal people, which is really cool. So I don't think there's anything to lose with learning this information.